Hey everybody, welcome to Watches with Dennis, and it is the Saturday live stream that I like to do on Saturdays, hence why we call it the Saturday live stream. So we today are going to be talking about 2025. So I'm going to actually focus on 5 watch brands that are on my list of consideration. I'm not saying I'm going to buy all of these brands. I'm not going to say that I'm even going to buy any of them, but they are 5 brands that I'm interested in exploring about adding to the collection in 2025. And they are all brands I have never owned a watch from before. So I think for those of you that are watching live, I'll be interested in hearing what you guys are thinking about getting in 2025. If you have anything on your list, or perhaps you have done well and escaped the wrath of needing to acquire more watches, in which case, congratulations on that success. And those of you who are watching a recording, then feel free to comment like kind of what you're thinking about getting or what you're interested in 2025 in the comments below. No links today. We'll be just using some brand websites to go ahead and do the discussion. Do have a few housekeeping items like I like to start with. So I did have a pre-recorded video this week. It was regarding an offer that I received. I think I may have mentioned it on the last live stream regarding getting a Rolex Submariner. I've shared a link in the live chat feed for those of you watching live, but long story short, I was offered a date Submariner. I only want the no date version, so I turned it down. But I had someone mention on the Watches with Dennis Discord, which there is a link to that in the video description, said people like those sort of videos. Like, would I put something out about like the process? Because I know people like to gather information about how many watches have you bought, how long were you on the list, what specific model were you after, all that sort of stuff. So anyway, it's like under a 4-minute video. It's pretty short, but it's actually done for my channel size quite well. So I guess people really do like to hear about that sort of thing. So anyway, that video is out there, and there's the link on that. Have also a few of the viewers have shared Christmas gifts with me, which is exceedingly generous. I do not ask for gifts. That would be very weird though if you were like, please give me gifts. I need gifts. No, the only thing I would ask, if you want to join the 99-cent club, you can join that. But what I will ask is to like the video if you do end up, I'm opening my Coke, sorry. If you do end up enjoying how the live stream is going. So one I see is already in the chat, Rob A. He actually sent me this book. I'm going to start reading it next week. I have not read it yet, but I'm going to wait till I'm on break from my job. But so it's A Man and His Watch, and he even had the author inscribe it. So anyway, it goes over a lot of individuals who have owned watches, iconic watches, and kind of tells the story of them. There's a lot of images in it. I have flipped through it, even though I have not read it yet. So thank you, Rob. That was very, very generous of you. And then yesterday, I had another viewer send me what was on my wrist today, which is the Seiko SRPK 17. This is that 55th, and I'm going to try to do a better job of this. That's that 55th, I think 55th anniversary vintage Seiko watch that came out. My camera is being very uncooperative. Came out last year. And I had mentioned I was thinking about getting this watch, but I never bought it. And the reason was when I heard that this bezel was friction, I thought it would be like the Vostok I once owned. And that was really hard to turn, rough, all of that. And so I was just kind of like, I didn't think the bezel will put me off. This bezel is super smooth. It's very easy to turn. Very interesting bracelet as well. So anyway, very, very generous. I think it was Matthew who sent that. So anyway, thank you very much. Very, very kind of you guys. I do appreciate it. So anyway, enough of the finer things. Let's get on to spending money, potentially spending money. So 5 brands that I've never owned that I've been thinking about. I'm going to start with the most affordable of that. They won't be in the order of cost, but I'm going to go actually start with Mido. But before I do that, I will say hello to everyone who has been posting in the chat. I have seen your messages. I have not forgotten. I almost forgot, but I have not forgotten. So Irvin, welcome to the live stream. Glad you could make it again. Kevin, good morning. Great to have you here. Thomas with the Escapement Show. Good afternoon for you. It's still morning my time, but very, very appreciated. Good morning, Rob, and thank you in addition for the gift for being a 99-cent club member. I do appreciate that as well. Foxhouse, welcome back, Foxhouse. Glad you've been able to make it. Yes, it is almost Christmas. I have 2 more days of work, And then I'm taking the rest of next week off, and I'm taking all of the following week off, and then I will be back at work because I have not taken any vacation, I believe, since July. So I'm due. And I only took 1 day in July. I've decided I'm due. Brave Sailor, thank you also for being a 99 Cent Club member. Very much appreciate it. And says, don't really want to buy another watch in 2025, but if I do, it will be a Swiss chronograph. Interesting. Do you have any brands narrowed down to? I will have a major chronograph brand in my list. It'll be the last brand we end up covering. Rob saying, my pleasure. He's the one who sent the book. Glad you liked it. Small token of my appreciation for all the hard work on this channel. Well, thank you very much. Very, very kind of all of you to be here as well. I appreciate you. So I said Mido, right? Mido. I can't say words right. I have people report, you don't say these brands right. I say a lot of things wrong, guys, not even just in watches. I say many things wrong. I am from the Midwest, and we are notorious for our weird statements and mispronunciation. I've just ascribed this to all of the Midwest instead of just taking full ownership of my own failings. But what is not a failing is Mido's multi-fort TV big date. So this is a watch that had loosely been in my periphery, very, very loosely, but I already have a big date watch. I've owned a couple of big date watches. Big date's one of my favorite complications. A date, which can be a hit or miss complication for a lot of people, myself included, becomes a hit when you make it even bigger. It's sort of funny. People will talk about symmetry and complain about where the date windows are placed and all the rest of it. But you make it a big date, and all of a sudden, for many watch collectors, it becomes cool, no matter what their stance on regular dates are. It's a funny thing. This I started to think about more, though, in the wake of the Cubitus. I don't have any interest in a Cubitus. I had a Santos at one point, so I have had a square watch before, and then of course I used to have a Reverso, which is a rectangular watch. Some people call all the rectangular watches square watches also. This, has some of those reminiscent motifs, but very television inspired. You can even tell from the patterning of the dial itself as I zoom in to give you a better look at it. But I mean, they retail at the low $1,000, like they're like around $1,200 or so. That's sort of their starting price point. I've seen them new on eBay more around like the 900, 900 to 1,000. So you can get them sub 1,000 is my point. The biggest thing that stopped me from pulling the trigger has been I was concerned about the size. Now they do make, and I'll do a side by side for you. They do make a non-big date version, which is a much smaller watch. This is almost 40 by 40. It's like 39 by 40 millimeters, or the dimensions of this watch. They make this version as well, the Multifort TV 35, which is like a 34 by 35 millimeter. And as many of you know, if you've looked into square watches, their presence on the on the wrist, it doesn't work the same as a round watch. So because of the proportions of it, they feel bigger than what their size would suggest. Or another way to say it is, you can go smaller on a square watch and it doesn't look too small versus where you would draw the line on a round watch. That's just sort of the general rule of thumb. So a lot of people would immediately balk at seeing 34 and 35 millimeters and say that is way, way too small for a sports watch. But when it comes to more square shapes, that's actually a pretty reasonable size. Modest, yes, but not extraordinarily small. So, but you'll see, if I bounce back and forth real quick, the small version doesn't have the big date. It's just got the standard 1 date aperture window. So that's an immediate turnoff to me on it, because while you still get the iconic TV design, without the big date, it's just not as cool. Even though, full salute to them for putting the date at the 12, something that a lot of brands will not do, but it maintains the same level of symmetry that you would get with the date at the 6. So why not? So anyway, but I do like the look of this one. But if I was to pull the trigger, you see it's 1270, even for the bigger one. The lug to lug on this is not bad. It's like around 47 millimeters. So it's actually pretty wearable as I've gone ahead and examined it. Which ones do I like? They do have a blue one, but I already have it's similar to this blue. But I do like the green one. I think the green's pretty cool. I also like this blacked out version that they've got. It's 1,400, but you see it's got the orange going on. You still have the TV static lines through it. You might say it's a Fotina look, but again, against this black, I'd like to see it in person, but in the images, against this black, this looks really clean. And I do like blacked out watches. I only have one. I only have my my funky blue Moser, and my G-Shock. So I have two. have 2 black watches, but black is a great color. So it's definitely one I would say is worth entertaining. So anyway, it's only the TV, it's only the multi-fort TVs from Mido that I'm interested in. I don't everything else in their catalog that I've not dived deep into the catalog, but everything else in the catalog has been, I could get like, why not a Certina? You know, like, why would I choose Mido over Certina or whatnot? So that's just the model that's unique to them. And so anyway, it's a potential. It's on the list. The secondary concern, the size was the initial, but after reading more about the specifications, I'm not too worried about that. The secondary concern is how often would I wear it? And that's a role for any watch that I'm considering at this point. And because I don't wear sports watches all the time to work anymore, I wear dress watches most of the time. Sports watches just get, I mean, things that, like I can wear this to work, and I will over the next week. I always wear my new watches for a while as sort of the only choice watch, but inevitably they end up being weekend watches and vacation watches. So just one of those things, just where I'm at currently. So anyway, that's what I'm entertaining regarding that. Underachieving watch collector, welcome to the live stream. I gladly give Theory Stern a lump of coal for Christmas. One brand that will not be in this list today is Patek Philippe. And while I deeply admire many of the Calatrava models, after Mr. Stern's statements, I have basically no interest in buying anything from Patek, even used. Which, I mean, buying used doesn't reward him anyway, but it's kind of like, well, I'll talk about that with the next brand. But yeah, no, there's a price to words. Thomas says, you definitely need the big date version. So much more cooler. Yeah, see, that's my thinking. You look at it and you see that big date, and it just, I mean, it takes up a ton of space, but it's well proportioned. It's perfectly situated. They've reasonably blended it in. And yeah, I mean, the positioning is all great with this one too, but it's just another date window. Just makes me sad. Big dates are cool. I like big dates a lot. And as I get older, I'm appreciating them more and more. Patrick with Pocket Watch Time. Happy holidays to you and welcome to the live stream. I'm glad you're here, and hopefully things are going very well for you. All right. And Underachieving says, seems only fair being what he gave us this year. Look, he's not a trained designer. He just knows what works. And I guess he'll find out. And so far, they've been selling, so he's got that going for him. But I've been looking at another brand instead. This one will not be a surprise to you all. And so I'm going to jump from the cheapest watch brand on my list of 5 that I've never owned before that I'm thinking about for next year to the most expensive, and that's Vacheron Constantin. So Vacheron has a lot of models. Obviously, there are a lot of collectors who are enamored with the Overseas. The Overseas is not a watch that I'm super interested in. It looks nice. I don't really like the date integration on most of them. Actually, that's sort of a thing I have with a lot of the sports watches from Patek Philippe as well, just as well since they're so hard to get. But Vacheron has a number of pieces, mostly in the dress watch space, that I really, really like. The problem is, one, they're very expensive, though many of these take a dive on the secondhand market. So I'd almost assuredly buy them secondhand. And two, they're all dress watches pretty much. So I think I already said that, but so pricing is a barrier, and that they're all dress watches limits their role, obviously. But again, because I wear so many dress watches to work, it's very, very appealing. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this one, the Malt. I don't know. Is it Malte? Malt? I looked it up at one point, and I can't remember anymore. Anyway, I'm going to call it the Malt because it makes me think of milkshakes. Anyway, probably not this one. There's a no longer produced model with a like white gold with a slate gray, and of course gray being my favorite color, this is not a surprise, but with a slate gray dial, looks super clean. I can't ever find them in the US. They're mostly sold on in Hong Kong and in Japanese dealers on Chrono 24 at least, but this gives you a sense of what I'm talking about. So this is a tonneau shaped case. I've never, to my knowledge, at least nothing immediately comes to mind that I've owned that's a tonneau shaped case. Otherwise though, you've got a very classical vibe here. So small seconds. This is the iteration I really like. They have some of these with complications, moon phases, things of that nature, power reserves, but it's just this really, really clean baton markers, except at the 6 and the 12, they do Roman numerals, kind of a leaf style handset. So I really like the look of this watch quite a bit. Shaped movement, unlike the cubitus in the ones that I've looked at least. So there's a good example of it. In fact, I think yes, okay, we can blow it up a little bit possibly. But anyway, so the malt. So that's one. I have not been able to see one in person. When I was at the Vacheron boutique in Dallas, they don't carry malts. They told me only certain flagship stores had those for whatever reason. I don't think it's a particularly popular model either. So I was a little surprised that that one was limited in that capacity, limited in terms of where they were selling them. But I started to learn when I was in Dallas, there were all sorts of weird rules because Richemont's Jaeger LeCoultre, Richemont Group has JLC. I went to one of their authorized dealers. They only had the time-only reversos. They didn't have any of the chronographs. And they said, you have to go to one of the other JLC stores that was in the area for the chronographs. They weren't allowed to carry them. And again, I was just like, that's very, very strange. So malt, that's one idea. This one, all right. I put it on here because I like the watch, not expecting to get this in 2025 because you could see the starting price of $74,000. These don't dive very much on secondhand. In fact, the cheapest I think I've ever seen it on Chrono 24 was around $69,000 for, and not counting the old vintage models. But this is the Vacheron. This is part of the Historique collection. I'm going to give you another Historique here in a moment. But this is the 222. The Overseas is the modernized version of the 222. I like this version better, though, in part because it kind of embraces this total day-date vibe. It's gold on gold on gold. It's only a 37 millimeter watch, though, so it's very, very modest. With a color match date window at the 3. It's super clean, integrated sports style bracelet. But modernized, well-finished movement. All of the Vacherons I'm going to show you, none of them are 56. I do like the dials on the 56, but these are all going to be Geneva sealed watches and movements and cases. So anyway, it's just, I loved the look of this watch when it was revealed, and it wears so modestly that I don't think it's gaudy in that blingy sense. Now, my hope, I actually like this in gold a lot. Here's what I want. What I want is for Vacheron to finally release the 222 Historique in steel. People, including people who bought the gold, are going to jump ship and go to the steel one. They'll dump the gold ones, and the gold ones will collapse in price. That's what I want. Well, that's what I want to see happen. But it is very difficult to look at this watch at 37 millimeters and say that is $74,000. And you look at the starting value of the 36 millimeter all gold with gold bracelet Rolex day dates at 36.5 and say, why is this double the amount? Because I know adding the Geneva sealing only adds like $10,000 to $15,000 to the process. So anyway, you just have to really love it. But I like it way more than the day dates in general. So anyway, so that one is not likely for 2025, but I wanted to go ahead and throw it on the list. But I'm not done yet. I've got a couple more for you. Another Historique line. Many of you have watched this channel for a while. I've heard me talk about these before. The 1921. I like the 1921 a lot. I have tried these on in 36.5 millimeter, so that's why you're seeing this one. I do like some of the strap configurations better on the 40 millimeters. The 40 millimeters tend to be cheaper used also because they've been out for years and years. Like they've been making that over a decade. This has only been out for a few years. I actually preferred the rose gold originally, but seeing the white gold in person, I found it very, very impressive because it's a very classic, it's not even Art Deco. It's like Art Nuevo. It's just before the Art Deco movement. But it's interesting. I like the amalgamation of the more modern style with the white gold with the very, very classical design chosen for this watch. But the 36.5 for my wrist, and my wrist is 6 3/4 of an inch, it wears very well. And again, we've mentioned earlier when we were talking about Mido about how squares wear. It uses the same movement in both instances. So the movement also fills out the case back much better on the 36.5 millimeters than they do on the 40. And it's interesting, if you ever get a chance, go and look at the 40 and then ask yourself, why did Patek go to 45 on the Cubitus? Makes no sense. The 40 is a huge looking watch. Plenty of size for a lot of individuals. But here's a good example to sort of like this, I think, is the same wrist as we saw with the 222. So you can see how well with the way the lugs look and everything. It's classical. I could wear the 40. It does not going to overhang. These lugs don't go out very far on either model, but I like the 36.5. These are much more reasonable. You'll see that they run about $34,000 retail. You can find them pretty easily, even in this sizing. You can find them pretty easily for around the mid to 20s. So like think 25, 26,000. I've seen some with damage go as low as like 19 or so, but not for a while. That was at the start of last year, I would say, or no, at the start of this year, I would say. That's when I really saw that. So that one is on the list. That one's much more realistic used than the 222. So that is a possibility. Is the 1921. And then the last I want to talk about is the Traditionale. So I mentioned earlier how Thierry Stern has kind of alienated me from wanting to buy anything from Patek, but I love the look of the classic Calatrava. The Patrimonies are readily available used from Vacheron, but I don't like their handset. I don't like the baton hands on the dress watch. I like this style, the Calatrava style, but the Vacheron Traditionale has that available. So you can see I can easily go and say, let's get this. It's going to have the small seconds. It's going to have a very similar handset to the Calatrava. It's going to have a Geneva sealed movement and case, which Patek will not give you. And it's also going to be a lot, and I mean a lot more affordable. Now, pricing wise, these do run quite a bit more than the Patrimonies do, but you see, they start at 23,700. Calatrava in this configuration starts 10,000 higher. And these drop a second. Now, Patrimony will, while it may start around a similar amount, Patrimony can be found closer to 10,000 used. These, I think more around 16,000, but that's still quite a depreciation. So I've got two listed because while I really do like I'm very much a more time and time plus date watch person. I do like their complete calendar. Obviously, it's significantly higher and thus hard and less purchase, so it's harder to find used. $45,000 watch, but just as an example to let you see just how impressive it looks. If you like this, the blend of having like the day and the month as discs, and then you have a pointer for the date, I think it looks really good. And I like this style of moon phase. So I just think that this is a really cool iteration of it as well. But probably if I were to bite, I would end up biting on the manual winding regular time only Traditionale. But for cost reasons, and I wear so many different watches, keeping this thing set is going to end up pissing me off, I think. So quite bluntly, that's kind of it. So those are the options that I'm entertaining from Vacheron in 2025. Well, and the 222, which isn't really being entertained, but I still wanted to talk about it because I have the site loaded. So how could I not? But let me go ahead now and get caught up with chat because I did see your messages coming in, but I wanted to go ahead and get through all of the Vacheron items before I would go ahead and jump into it. So Thomas with Escapement says, I really like this model of Malt from Vacheron, so I'll throw it back up there. It's quite large, but it looks really nice. Yeah, it's an interesting the way I've seen it and like this image, this wrist shot image, it reminds me. I clicked the wrong button there. I wanted to make my head smaller. It reminds me of how it wears on the wrist, kind of like how my JLC that I had, which was a fairly large lug-to-lug JLC. So yeah, the more of a wrist presence than I would get with like the 1921 or whatnot. And again, I had wished to have been able to try it on when I was in Dallas because I wanted to get a good feel for if I like it like that sizing. With like the JLC Reverso, if I was to get another JLC Reverso, I'd like to get a smaller one that's got a smaller lug to lug because I think I would like it to wear a little more modest. Another achieving watch collector is salivating at the thought of having malts. Malts are very, very nice. Patrick says the 222 is beautiful, but too expensive for me. $74,000. Again, one is in the watch hobby too long in my mind when I'm going, you know what? Is there a way to swing it? And I'm like, I've never bought a car that was remotely near that price. So I'm just like, at this point, we're getting near what have I ever bought that was more than the 222? Honestly, my house is the only thing I've ever bought that was as much as that 222 is. My house was more than the 222, but not as much as you might think. Koji, welcome to the live stream, by the way, and for being a 99-cent club member. I do appreciate it. Says, wait for a 222 in steel. And I think your comment came in while I was talking about how I do want the 222 to come out in steel, but not for me. I want the gold one. But I think the used market will finally break on the pricing when the 222 in steel hits the market. Thomas says, "Oh yes, if I could afford the full gold 222, that would be a banger watch. Probably my favorite gold watch. It is my favorite gold watch, and I do like the dates. Like the current one, they have the green dial one, for example. It's a very nice looking watch. Very difficult to get a hold of though. These were difficult to get a hold of for a while, but I've heard a number of people have been able to basically, if you want to get them from a boutique, they're boutique only. But if you want to get them from the boutique, it's pretty easy at this stage to walk in and place an order, which makes sense given the cooling down of the watch market. And people back then were probably speculating that the 222s would go way up in price. And they may have initially, but that's not the case anymore. Most of the used market has the 222 at about $2,000 to $4,000 less than the retail price, would be my saying. There are some that have listed at like 10,000 plus more, but those days are gone. There's no reason to pay more than retail for a 222 used. Cloudkin, welcome to live stream. Dennis, thoughts on 14% price increase on gold Daytonas? Makes me want to try for the stainless steel AP again. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm not savvy enough on Daytona collectors to be able to tell you if do most Daytona buyers, or I should say potential buyers, do they want the gold version of the Daytona? I always assumed that it was the stainless steel, just like how there's all the cries for the 222 in stainless steel. And I don't just think it's the price difference at the start. I think there's just it's a harder metal. It's more robust. It's more wearable. People are less worried about it being stolen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think 14% is overly steep. Rolex is usually relatively modest with their price increases. They're not like Richemont. I think they definitely held back from jacking the prices on people and gouging them post-pandemic, like we saw come out of Richemont Group. But yeah, it seems high to me. But I know gold prices got up there a bit too. Well, I don't follow gold all that much. Let me put it this way: I'm a little surprised it was a double-digit increase, but impact on demand, minimal, unless people were going for it speculatively, and they might still. The Daytona still, like, as a line of watches with Rolex, it's the hardest line to get. But I think the steel ones are the ones that have the most potential to be flipped later for money. So I still think steel's where most people want to go. But that's just my guess. Koji says, I wish they made the 1921 in platinum, blue Breguet numerals in the 36.5 millimeter size. So that's an interesting one to bring up. There is, and Koji knows this, but for those of you that don't, they did make a platinum version. I've seen, if you want to watch a video of it, Tim Masso with 1916 Company a few years ago had a review of a platinum 1921. However, they're only in the 40 millimeter. And I believe it was a limited edition run. Maybe it wasn't limited, but it's only in 40. So you have to get the bigger size. It is a very impressive looking watch. The blue on the dial looks really good against the platinum. And they could honestly do that look with white gold and you would get a similar vibe. However, at this point, I think they want to keep them distinguished. So if they're going to do the blue numerals in 36.5, I think they'll only do it if they unleash a platinum cased watch. They might do that eventually. I don't know how well the 36.5 sell. I think because, again, kind of like what we talked about with the Midos and square watches and sizing, there'll be a lot of guys who are immediately put off at the notion of, they'll see the 36 and this is more of a dress watch, so I think they could get away with it, but there'll be some that will default to feeling it's a ladies watch size. And so there's just less people that end up buying it. Vacheron treats these very much as a unisex line. And I say it that way because you'll see they do have some very, I'll call them fashion forward straps. The watches come with both. So like this version of the white gold one comes with this brown strap, but there's another strap that I believe it comes with as well. I don't know if they have a photo of it. Okay, they have both. So they have the dark brown, which is sort of a more, you might argue it's a more masculine looking strap. And then that's kind of like cherry red. I think these both look reasonably decent. The rose gold one, though, have this really, really bright red, like candy apple red strap. But then they have a much more modest, more masculine looking colorway. Yeah, they also do the brown calfskin style or gator style. So again, they're trying to play to both audiences. And I believe the watches come with both if you get them. So FYI, if you're curious, you will get a choice. And of course, finding leather straps is really easy. But I didn't know about the 14% price increase. So yeah, I hadn't. I assumed Rolex. They did not in the U.S. They did not raise prices, at least not broadly in 24. So I figured they might go ahead and do it this year in or 25, not this year, and almost this year. So we'll see what ends up happening. Thomas says the 1921 is a grail of mine. It has to be the rose gold model for me, though. When I first went into Vacheron's boutique, this is the one I wanted to look at. They got both out for me because they were readily available back in March, and I'm sure they still are. But I was really impressed by I would be happy with either, quite bluntly. Here's the thing. I already have a rose gold watch I wear a lot. My Longa 1 is rose gold, and I could easily see myself going ahead and getting rid of my Calpa Tonda from Parmigiani, which is my one white gold watch, and replacing it with the white gold 1921, because I already have another Parmigiani that I like better, and that's the Tonda PF, which is in steel. So anyway, let's see. What else is going on here? Thomas says, I know someone who bought one of the Traditionals used and got a great deal. Lovely piece. Yes, the Traditionals, they get significant discount. The malts too. The malts also see significant discounting. The 222 sees barely any discounting, and the 1921 sees, I'll say, modest discounting. Patrimonies, Traditionals, malts, they generally drop a lot. Not like Patek. They don't have the same retention. I would only buy those used. You might as well let someone else take the hit, is my theory. And people tend to baby these watches because they're dress watches. Koji says, another great historique Vacheron is the 1942 triple calendar. You might like that as well. Well, since we're there, we can go ahead and take a look at that. I have looked at it before. Again, calendars generally are, I'm like, am I going to want to deal with the setting of them? Because I'm not going to keep them wound. Is that an older model? Because I only see the 1955s, not the 1942s. I'll have to check it out a different time then. All right, let's see. Oh, and Thomas is saying, hasn't that been discontinued? Apparently, yes. They've been only the 55s live. The 1940s technology had to go. And Marcelo Time, oh, hello, welcome to the live stream. Glad you were able to make it. All right, so we've talked Mido, we've talked Vacheron. So I've got 3 other brands that are still in play for me in 2025 that I want to consider. This one, again, for longtime viewers, is not going to be a surprise in any capacity, and that is Chopard. Yes, a jewelry brand, but we've already seen Cartier as a jewelry brand is very, very popular in watches. In fact, they, from a Swiss perspective, are only second to Rolex at this point in terms of the amount of money that they are generating from their sales, having surpassed Omega. But Chopard has a couple of lines that are interesting. There's the Alpine Eagle line, but again, with the Tonda PF, I'm not really looking for another integrated steel sports watch. So while that one was on the short list, it is not on the list anymore. So that leaves the L.U.C line. Has to be the L.U.C line because I love dress watches. So these, the L.U.C 1860s, the modern ones without dates in particular, I like almost all of them. This, of course, was the first one that really stood out to me. It was my favorite watch of 2023. That is the Lucent steel version with the salmon dial. I have started to see these show up used, and they are going for around the same price as they are new. So this is not a watch that has significantly appreciated, which is not too surprising. It's not a limited edition, but they do limit the production every year to do what they want to do. So this is one, but it's not the only one. Ones like this have, just like Vacheron, they're doing the Geneva hallmarking sorts of things. However, there's also this style, which again has a more Calatrava-esque vibe. Different handset. I'm not sure yet. I'm thinking on this. The handset's a little off-putting to me, but I'm actually okay with like the 12 up here. Again, there was one I saw that they used to make with a slate gray dial against rose gold. I think the same style of gold, and it looks really sharp, but they don't make it anymore. So it's one of those more outdated things. But anyway, so those are a couple of the L.U.Cs. They also have like that 4-screen one that came out this year, which is really, really cool. But again, that's more sporty, and I'm not really looking for sporty from Chopard. I think it just needs to lean into the dress watch aesthetic. for me. If I was going to go sporty with Chopard, it would have been the Alpine Eagle, but I've already made that choice. So anyway, just wanted to go ahead and mention those. These are still, I don't know that I would pay $25,000 for steel. That's the thing. The Lucid steel looks really good in pictures and in video. I have not been able, I have gone to a Chopard dealer. They were not able to show me this watch. I'm not surprised. I've not seen the Lucent steel in person. I want to see if it looks premium enough to me for that. If not, I would much rather get a dial that's like this, but go ahead and give me a gold case. And again, you see with something like this, the pricing is quite a bit less too. Now, this one might not be the Geneva seal movement as part of the issue. I'd have to double check that, but I'm not obsessed with it having to be a Geneva seal style watch. But anyway, Chopard for the dress watches, they're still where they're going with their L.U.C line. I like better than the historic L.U.Cs. That's one of the challenges is the older L.U.Cs, the older 1860s with the date at the 6. I don't really like the look, and it's because of the date window, how they cut it into the small seconds. It just polarizes me a little too much. And at those prices, I'm not gonna settle on that. So just one of those things. Matthew, welcome to the live stream, and thank you for being a 99-cent club member. Why didn't they rotate the seconds register? I assume you mean on the 1921s we were talking about with Vacheron, like this. I do not know, because obviously that's just a printing issue. It doesn't really matter where the hand is pointing. They're not tied to the hours and minutes. I don't know. A lot of people hate it because of that. I've seen a number of people. It does not bother me. I think they probably thought it just provides a quirky asymmetry to an already asymmetrical looking watch, would be my guess. I don't know. We'd have to ask the designer. But I know it does bother a number of people. Bothers Koji, apparently. Koji doesn't like it. Oh, Thomas, I don't know I didn't know you could gift memberships. I think I didn't know you could gift memberships on this channel, because I guess I keep forgetting that the club is the memberships or something, I guess. So anyway, very, very kind of you though. So thank you very much. That's very nice. All right. Let's see. Thomas adds after that, or yes, I think you're one in the same. I think these are both the same Thomases, but I really like this L.U.C XPS. So let's, I'm going to go back to that one. Yeah. I like the, oh, good. I didn't click on it. We can zoom. Yeah. This has got a really interesting, if you're on let me move the chat here. If you're on a phone, it may be hard to see, but this, like the radial pattern, it's like emanating from the logo. It's not dead center. It's sort of like sunbursting out from here. It's very, very subtle. Let me see if I can, that's as close as I can zoom it in without doing weird chrome tricks, but it kind of bursts out from here. So this is like the sun, and it's emanating from there. That they didn't just put it smack dab in the middle. It's just one of those really subtle choices that a lot of watch manufacturers, this is where I think it can be helpful to have a company that might be a jewelry brand first, thinking about what they want to do. And we do have a shot of the movement. So this one, that's part of the reason why the pricing is lower. This is not Geneva sealed case back and movement. If you ever want to take a look at the side-by-side, actually, I bet I can do that for you. I bet I can give you a side-by-side, because these movements are going to be basically identical, except there's the Geneva seal there, but I want to show you the difference. So you see, they're very, very similar. The finishing, though, you can see from like the engine turning, how they've done the brushing. You'll see the step up. You can actually, even like a plebe like me can see the step up in the quality. Look at just the additional richness of the micro rotor on the carving. So if you really care about that, then you'll want to look at the Geneva seal ones. But setting that aside, you'll see like you're still getting the 22 karat gold rotor. All the basic configuration is pretty much the same. You get a lot more interesting style of balance wheel here. You know, the cover over here for these jewels is more machine basic here. Those are the differences, but it's still a 29 jewel movement adjusted in 5 positions in both cases. This is the 9612 movement, and this is the 9640 movement. But I think they are basically identical other than finishing. But both are this is still really nice. This is a very well finished movement. It's just, this is a Geneva finished movement. So anyway, if you were curious, I forgot that they would let me zoom in on these. So there you go. That's the differential that comes into play. All right. Let's see. Ben 10. Welcome to Livestream, Ben. I don't really like those Vacherons, but I'd love to try on. Yes, definitely if you can ever get to one. They didn't have this available, and I still think, I don't know if they keep a lot of those in stock, but and if I don't know, Ben, if you have a larger wrist, but if you do and you're curious about dress watches, check out Patrimonies, because they have Patrimonies that are over 40 millimeters in diameter. And if it's like, if you want a big dress watch, Vacheron's always my first thought, because they make them really big. And I know some people that love the Patrimonies for that reason. Okay, so we've talked Mido, we've talked Vacheron, we've talked Chopard. I was gonna say bring it down in price, but that depends. Let's bring it lateral in price. Let's bring it higher than Chopard in some instances, but lower than Vacheron in others. But it really depends on what you want to go with, and that's Credor. So it's a Seiko brand, right? It's a Seiko brand that's not sold very much in the United States. However, you do see them sometimes pop up on Chrono 24. This, honestly, Credor is very unlikely in 2025. I'm at the point where I think if I were to go to Japan, instead of doing go to the Japan and buy a Grand Seiko, I think I would go and buy a Credor. And there are Credors that are way, 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 way under what I'm going to show you from their website. But of course, I love dress watches. So there are couples. There are a couple of model lines. There's the Gold Feather line, which you see a lot less discussion about, and I believe are a lot more affordable. And then, of course, there are the Ichi styles, right? This one actually, I don't think they call it that, but it's their new limited edition. But you'll see it's got the same vibe as the Ichi 2. So these are very expensive porcelain dial watches, but they look great. Again, like every dress watch aesthetic that I kind of like. Weird handset to me, almost like a pencil handset, but very, very classic. Also different than what you see from the various Swiss manufacturers. Now, these that I tend to like the most are the ones that happen to be spring drive. If you want to take a look at how they do the spring drives on these Credors, there you go. They look really, really good also. But again, especially if you're willing to look at used older stuff, Credor is one of those brands where the price spectrum's like this. It's all over the place, even more so than Grand Seiko. You can find quartz Credors like under $1,000 used, at least you can find them. And then you got like the Ichi 2 stuff, which is like retailing around 45,000 US. So they're all over the place. So I'm showing you some that are probably beyond what I would be wanting to spend myself on these style of watches. But you can because these are like gold and platinum and stuff, but they make steel things, and they make things that are not the Ichi 2 and the Ichi 1. And, but I wanted to say, like, this is a general vibe look that they've done a lot of, including in their back catalog stuff that's sort of classical and simple, but different than what we see from the Swiss brands. And so just broadly speaking, Credor has, I'd say as of the second half of 2024, it's definitely risen a lot in terms of it's on my radar now. Whereas in the past, I would have been looking again at Grand Seiko, which my Grand Seiko experience was sort of like I loved the dial work. I loved the movement. I had a spring drive. I was okay with the sizing. It's a pretty big watch, and I got one that was under 40 millimeters, but it was still kind of thick. Didn't love the rotor. Didn't love the bracelet. You know, I'm with everyone else. The bracelets are kind of like trash tier out of a brand that charges that much money. Maybe they're making improvements now. Mine was an older model, but anyway, Credor, straps. I can change straps all day. No problem. I don't like the strap. So that's one of the. That's just one of those items that's ended up on the list because I just think it's interesting. And again, this style of decoration to a spring drive watch, I just think is really, really cool as well. All right. Ben says Credor has some elegant dial as well. Absolutely. And yes, I loaded this back up because you're mentioning of the case back being really nice. And I agree. This is and again, I like to look at the spring drive. It's neat to watch the wheels spin and stuff when you're allowed to. I had a closed case back one, so I never got to appreciate that with the Grand Seiko I owned. Koji notes it's an excuse to visit Tokyo. Yes, I have lots of excuses to visit Tokyo. This is just a watch related one. And Patrick with Pocket Watch Around Time is like, yeah, even someone like me, like corn-fed Midwesterner has got Credor on the radar at this point. Ben says, I have the Grand Seiko GMT, but I don't really want more. But although Grand Seiko makes some gorgeous dials. Here's the thing with with Grand Seiko, which it's true for a lot of watches. So it's just because I think because there's an association with Japanese culture and efficient automation, which of course they were renowned for with the car industry and such, is when you've seen one Grand Seiko, you kind of seen them all within a particular model line. Like if you grab a Heritage and you grab like 4 other Heritages, like everything's going to be set the same except the dial texture and color. So my point would be that's fine and it makes sense. Obviously, they can't be reinventing the case every time. It's a criticism I point out with like Rolex collections is why am I not like some of the people that replied to my video I did earlier this week about getting the call? Some of the individuals were like, I would have bought it and I would have bought the next watch and the next watch, and maybe they would have kept them all too. And that's fine. We all collect in whatever way we want to collect. But for me, there's only so much oyster case I want in my collection because they start looking really samey to me because I see the same case profile. With Grand Seiko, the same case profile is used a whole lot. In fact, the same dial hands are used a whole lot and the same markers are used a whole lot. They have the whole grammar of design. That is my long story short way of saying, once you own one Grand Seiko, unless you go like in a dramatically different line of theirs, and there aren't all that many, some of their lines aren't all that dramatically different from one another, in my opinion, it starts to be the same watch. So I think for a lot of people, they see that maybe their brain doesn't like their brain recognizes it, even if they don't consciously understand it. And so they're kind of like, I have a snowflake. Why would I go and get the new birch or something? And it's like, well, because I mean, so many of them have the same place of the power reserve and all that. So unless there's something different like that, it's kind of like you already own the watch. So why would you have 3 more of the same thing? Now, some people love to collect the same stuff. That's where like that Rolex thing comes in. Some Seiko collectors, Seiko, you can get a lot of variety if you're doing the different lines, but there are people that will collect turtles. And I'm kind of like, how many different colors of turtle do you need before you have terrible, terrible turtle rage? Are you not turtly enough for the turtle club? Be turtly enough with one. But that's my collecting style. You need to do what works for you all. So, okay, let's see. Trap Vision, welcome to live stream. What's happening? I don't know what's happening with everyone else. Today, I'm covering five brands that are on my radar for 2025, limiting myself to brands I've never owned before. I'm not including the brands that are on my radar that I've already owned a watch with before. That just makes it way, way too complicated. Koji adds in, if you're into accuracy here, I'll put the movement back up here. If you're into accuracy, you'll definitely want to get the spring drive with Credor. The manual wind movements they use are beautifully finished, but not terribly accurate from my experience. That's been my general experience with dress watches. Also, they just don't shoot for accuracy. And some people that totally puts them off, and I get it. Like my Reverso was not a particularly accurate watch. Even after servicing, I cannot say my Longa one is not going to win any records. And that's that original old movement, which is like, maybe their new movements do a lot better, but the old movement it was old tech when it came out. It was, it's not cutting edge as far as movements go. It's a cool looking watch, which is why I own it. And I don't even think my Breguet is all that accurate. So yeah, no, dress watches. Sometimes I understand when you're making them thinner and smaller, but when you're using more robust sizes, it is a little disappointing. At least for me, it's a little. So I'm more picky about accuracy on sports watches, however, as you pay more in pricing. My demands on a Seiko 5 are much, much lower than my demands are out of a Rolex. But of course, Rolex is advertising their accuracy, so they have to stand up for it. Let's see. Koji says, the new Grand Seiko bracelets are an improvement, but still nowhere near Rolex, in my opinion. Well, I mean, are we surprised? It's the same for me in Omega. In the price bracket, I don't know of share if you know of one in chat. I have not found a bracelet that matches Rolex's bracelet in the price bracket. The best bracelet I currently own, now I have a 5-digit Rolex. So their bracelets are not as good. Like I used to own the last gen Oyster Perpetual though, and that wasn't even the cutting edge version of their bracelet. It was a really good bracelet though, really good. At this point, my Parmigiani Tonda PF is my best bracelet, but this is a watch that retails about $10,000 more than most of the stainless steel watches out of Rolex. So in fact, I think it is $10,000 more than the retail of a Daytona. So it should have a better bracelet, but in the price bracket that Rolex operates in broadly, like my experience with Omega, my experience with Grand Seiko, it's none of it's been remotely close. In fact, it's weird because we often will point out when we talk about like entry price, and by that I mean let's say sub $500. I don't know, I'll do sub 1,000. Sub $1,000 Seikos and Orients and stuff. We're always talking about, the bracelet's garbage. Go to Uncle Seiko and get us another bracelet. Go to someplace else or put it on a strap. We make all these excuses, and at the price point, I totally understand it. But you know what? Some of these brands that are now like saying that their watches are $6,000 to $10,000, why are their bracelets still kind of meh? They just don't seem to care, and it's kind of annoying to me. Ben says the seconds hand on that Credor are so aesthetically pleasing, and that's the thing. Like this style with the counterbalance crescent moon, that again, it's such a cool look, and that's a part I like more than I see here on the. It's weird. So I actually like the hour minute, especially this minute hand look on this gold feather. I don't like that it says gold feather in this font. So I probably honestly wouldn't buy that one. But the handset, this looks really sharp, like literally looks sharp, like it would cut you. This, I really like the seconds hand a lot. But this hand's just a little weird. I just think this is a little more, I don't know. I just like the minute. What am I saying? I'm saying I like the minute hand on one watch. What a weird thing to point out. But it is what it is. So anyway, very, very cool watches though. So let's see. We only have one more brand to do. Let me make sure I'm caught up on chat though. Let's see. Brent, welcome to the live stream, by the way, Brent. I'm glad you could make it. Not many are near Rolex when it comes to bracelets, not in my experience at least. Again, if anyone's got ideas, I'd love to know if something kind of in that. Let's say that I know a lot of Rolexes are now over $10,000. So let's say 15,000 and under, like other really good bracelet brands that you all can suggest, because I really, really struggle to name you one that has a bracelet that I want to talk about. Ben says, so true about the repetitive designs. All I need is one Grand Seiko. Luckily, mine is on a strap, and that is very nice. I did put my Grand Seiko on a strap and loved it a lot better. I was so confused. I thought I misscrolled Thomas because I thought, wait, no. Did I go back up? Apparently, you gifted 5 more subs. That's incredibly generous of you. Thank you very much. I'm almost going to have to say, quit giving people subs, but I won't because I like money too. And let's see. Ben says Grand Seiko and their dial variations is like sneakers, Jordan sneakers, different colors with a story. Yeah, the stories feel a little forced to me, but it is, but it is what it is. And Patrick is, I'm a wiener. I don't know if you said it like that, but that's how I decide you say it. I'm a wiener. Ken says increasing gold Daytona price makes sense actually, as we are now back to pre-COVID, where any precious metal should be a relationship watch for stainless steel, and we'll see how that ends up working out for them. So I think they'll do okay though. They are Rolex. Brent says, although I'm not into dress watches, this has been a great stream. I will end with non-dress watches. Do not fear. Yes, I have a dress watch bias, but I mean I had the multiforts. You probably weren't on for the multiforts, but I did open with watches like this being on the list. So definitely one of those things. Riskful Ignorance, welcome to the live stream. Glad you were able to make it. Trap Vision says, that is a nice piece. I'm not familiar with Credor. Credor, yeah, they are, they're in the Seiko family. So it is, in some ways, people would say it's above Grand Seiko, but it's, with Seiko, you can't say things like that. It's a weird thing because they have stuff, especially when you go in the back catalog. There are Credors that are cheaper than Seikos. This one is not. This one, I think, is around $45,000 US new, the Ichi 2. Very, very expensive porcelain dial hand done. This is really expensive, also limited edition. All the ones I've shown you are really expensive. However, their catalog, see, they didn't have real scrolling, so I had to do this Chrome zoom in stuff. If you go to their website, Credor.com, Google may try and do some translation for you or whatever, but they've got like their masterpiece collection, then the gold feather line. The locomotive, I absolutely hate the look of the locomotive, but that's a Genta design if you're into Genta. But the masterpiece collection is the one that a lot of people have been talking about. So you get all these with the second hand. So that's the that's the line with the super cool, aesthetic, where they're, there's all this hand craftsmanship that goes on to them. But then they have their gold feathers, which are also dress watches, but those are mechanical. So, but they're all ultra thin. So if you're into mechanical, that can be a space for you to go and play in. And then I wasn't going to show the locomotive because I personally hate the look of it. But if you want their sports watch that Jinta did, he did do one for them. And so you're going to it's kind of like you get this weird squishy shape combined with the Alpine Eagle, with like a handset that reminds me of the Nautilus. So it has never worked for me. But, and these aren't remotely as expensive as the stuff I was showing. I mean, they're still pricey though, but they got other things. And then their used catalog, they got lots of quartz, and all that. So this is just the current production stuff. But again, in Japan, you can find Credors all day at the used shops. So that's part of the reason I went ahead and threw them on the list. But I don't have a plan to go to Japan in 25, but I can dream. So I'm dreaming of a 2025 where I actually go on some adventures. All right. So much chat activity. I'm trying to Patrick's unsubscribe. Well, I'm sad to see you go, but I do understand. My hate of the locomotive is off-putting to many, I am sure. But I can't help it. I cannot stand the look of it. But now I could just imagine, though, Patrick, that you would be all over it, in particular if it was made in tantalum or something. And I can get behind tantalum, but I cannot get behind that squishy face locomotive. But as has often been pointed out by me and avant-garde do not work well together. I am boring. I like boring conservative watch designs, and I like boring conservative sports watches, generally speaking, as well. Speaking of which, brand 5 of the 5 brands that I've never owned before is Breitling. All right, you want sports watches? I ain't pointing out any of their fancy pants. What is the collection stuff? The Premier line, they crop into the hour markers, total violation of aesthetic rules. I can't stand it, so I can't get behind the Premier lines, no matter how much I love saying pistachio dial and thinking about pistachio ice cream. I got 2 that in general I'm into. Now, I've just grabbed a couple of examples. I'm not married to this colorway. One is the Navitimer. Now, I have been back and forth on the Navitimer. In 2023, Navitimer was on the short list. Here's the rub. I feel like the Navitimer, it's supposed to be a chronograph, but I don't really want another chronograph. So am I okay with the Navitimer as a time-only watch? Aesthetically, I kind of am. It's a very, very unique look. Here's the thing that I don't know how the slide rule works because I never learned how to use slide rules because I didn't grow up in the 1920s. But is it still functional without the chronograph? If it's not, and it's just a fidget spinner with lots of markings on it, intellectually, I can't get behind it. I just can't get behind it. But if I could still do, in theory, I know it doesn't really matter, but hey, it's sports watch. I want it to do something. If this slide reel is still functional without the chronograph features, then maybe I could get behind it. Now, the other thing is, there are instances where I could go ahead and say, you know what, I'll put up with another chronograph. And the Chronomat has gone up more on the list now lately, from its unique bezel look that it's got, to it's a very different look. I own one chronograph. It's a Zenith Chronomaster original. This is a very different style, other than it's still a 3 sub-register format. Or am I just blinded by the fact that after I'm done with this live stream, I'm going to go and watch the Chiefs game like I watch all the Chiefs games. I don't watch preseason, but regular season, postseason, I always watch the Chiefs games. Would I buy a Chiefs themed watch? Yes. Would I buy a Chiefs themed watch that is $9,200? But so far, the answer has been no. Then as I sit here and think about it, I start to think, I am a big Chiefs fan. Shouldn't I be able to show that? Then I go, $9,200 is a lot of money to have a relatively gaudy looking watch. They have other chronomats that I do like the look of that are not this. I just grabbed this one as an example because people know I plan all my streaming and scheduling is planned around football. So it had to be said. However, they do have a whole assortment of chronomats. And in fact, I wasn't sure that even all of the chronomats, you don't have to get a chronograph version of Chronomat. So in reality, if I want to go ahead, let's click min ones. and you could start scrolling. And of course, they've got all the football ones up front because those are the relatively new ones. And I don't think they're selling as well as they had initially hoped they would because they're $9,200. And who has that kind of money to get a watch you're only going to wear on a few Sundays a year? But they have some of these other ones that are time only. And I don't feel the same weird sense of not proper tooliness with the chronomats when we start going and looking at things like this and going, okay, it's got its bezel, it's time only. I wouldn't get one with diamonds and stuff on it though. So I just need to grab an example to give you something to look at. So anyway, so Breitling's been on it was on the list. I didn't really think about Breitling this year. I did think about him in 23, and I just went in a totally different direction. But plus my job change happened in 23, and so then I started being more dress watch oriented. So that shift isn't surprising, but that's just kind of how it is. But anyway, let me see what you guys all have to say about all of that. All right, I'm trying to. Oh my gosh, there are so many things that I have missed apparently, and I'm trying to figure out where I need to jump in with this. But I guess I will start here with Brent. Thank you, Brent. I have never connected with the Navitimer for some reason. Maybe it's just too busy. It's exceedingly busy. And this is the simple one. Like I'm starting to sound incredulous. I don't mean to. I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm a little put off by the chronograph versions, because you start to look at this. Like, I know they're not all like this, guys, but I mean, look at this thing. I mean, I'm not sure I can read it with a loop. Look at all of this. There's a lot. That's why I'm kind of like, do I have to have the subtiles? Because if I don't need these registers, I mean, there's like a marker. I feel like there's a marker for every 1/8 of a second or something. There are markers upon markers upon markers. It's markerception. It's the new Christopher Nolan film, except then Hamilton would have to do this version. They call it the Murph marker or something. I don't know. Look, the joke isn't working, but you see what I'm saying. That's why I've been like, time only keeps it. It's still a super busy dial, but it keeps it way less busy than the others. But the Navitimer, I mean, granted, with Zen and their tie-in as well with their license on production, I still really associate the Navitimer very much with a Breitling aesthetic. But let me see. Ben says, I feel like I need a Navitimer, but aesthetically, it is not a match for me. A bit too busy. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like I'm trying to let it lean into that it's supposed to be busy, but I don't even know if it's a bit too busy. It may be like a super duper lot too busy. Ben continues saying, I remember hearing Rich Homie Quan rap about Breitling and thinking they were so cool until I tried one on. I don't remember where I was initially very put off by Breitling, but I don't know. I think it's just because they've got their own look. Riskful Ignorance says, am I the only one who thought Dennis's cursor was a smudge on their phone screen? You know, that's my fault. I'm sorry for smudging your screen. Ben says, it's a great time to be a Chiefs fan. I used to like them when Tony Gonzalez played. Oh, Tony Gonzalez and never getting to win a Super Bowl was, that was really, fans were devastated. It was weird. Don't worry. I will not stay on the football topic, but fans here were devastated when he left to go to another team where he thought he would have he was getting old and he thought he would have a better chance. And he did have a better chance of winning a Super Bowl, or at least getting to one with another team. But it was weird because they were devastated, but they also understood because he was beloved, absolutely beloved. I still get amazed that Travis Kelce has better tight end stats than Tony Gonzalez does, because it seemed like Tony Gonzalez was one of the greatest ones ever, but Kelce has a lot better numbers. Richville says the Rider tab bezel is fire. Yes, and that's part of the thing I think that's kind of grown on me. I initially actually was trying to help someone find where to source new little bezel inserts. They had one pop out somewhere, and that kind of, I think, got me starting to explore a lot more of the Chronomat lineup. Not this shiny fancy pants version. I don't want no fancy pants stuff. Just want a boring one or a Chiefs one. What? Or why not both? No, I wouldn't have both. But They've got all sorts of just sort of basic ones. It's also kind of cool to see the little countersunk B on them. I don't know. That's a little weird. That's kind of fun. I don't know. One of those things. Trap Vision asks, what do you think about Norcane's chrono? I'll have to look it up. I've seen it. It's not popping in my mind. So my initial reaction would be I don't think much about it because I don't think about them much. But I think I remember them coming up on. I think I saw about them on a blog to watch at one stage. But what is it? Is that the Freedom? Is that the one? Am I on the right thing? So these, the aesthetic looks nice, but it's too similar to the Zenith Chronomaster original. Like I have this style of buttons on my Zenith. I have the 430 date window on the Zenith. It's the tri-register configuration, different handset, but so I like this look, but I would never consider it because I already have a watch that looks a lot like this one. Brent says, I just got the Corvette Top Time for such a steal. I needed a red watch. I used to have a red watch. I had my Orient Cano, but I sold it. I don't have any red watches right now. Victor, welcome to the live stream, by the way. You always get an Invicta Chef's watch to support. I don't know what an Invicta Chef's Chief's watch. Oh, I didn't know they had a Chief's watch. I'm sorry. I don't know why I read it as Chef's. Probably because I'm hungry. Okay, I'll have to look. I've thought about doing a video about unpopular watch opinions like that I might have. And one of them, I'll just share it right now, is I don't have this dislike for Invicta and Hublot that lots of people seem to just hate them. Now, both of those brands, I've always just assumed the watches are too big for me, but I don't dislike the brands and people seem to, and I'm kind of like, why? I don't know. I think Hublots are too pricey. I think Invicta, I don't like how Invicta advertises an MSRP price that isn't really the MSRP price, and they do that discount thing as a consumer brain manipulation thing. But yeah, they make some really huge blingy watches, but the movements are good and stuff. So I don't understand the level of offense some people seem to have about them. But I didn't know they had a Chiefs watch, so I'll have to take a look about that. All right, let's see. Ristful says Norcane is the Richard Mille for normal humans. A fun summary. Ben says Norcane is nice. I will try one on in the new year. Patrick says he likes the bullet bracelet that Norcane has. And let's see. A lot of stuff on the football. Ben mentions he wants that Zenith Chrono. They have the Chronomaster original. I almost sold mine. They go for a lot less used than new. I bought mine gray. But if you want, maybe after the Christmas period in that January, February kind of dead zone, I would suggest, I don't know what your price range is, but maybe look for a used one around that time and see how much of a discount you can get. Now that we're past the pandemic and people are scrambling for everything, those really fell, especially the original line. Or if you go to the super vintage stuff, the Chronomaster Sports, because they look so much like Daytonas, they're more. But if you want to go to the more vintage style, which is what I did, I feel it's a little more Zenith, a little more not trying to crib from Rolex, and also the sizing's smaller, so I like them for a variety of reasons. But let's see. Ben 10 says, yeah, I don't have a problem with Invicta. They have the best community. I just can't wear them. Victor says, yeah, Invicta hate is crazy. It's the MSRP that triggers folks. Yeah, but I've never heard of anyone ever paying it. So it's a weird thing because I'm it's that thing where it's it's a $2,000, but now it's $100 or whatever. But I've never heard of anyone ever actually having to pay I've never heard of anyone not knowing and getting cheated either. Whereas there are plenty of people that maybe didn't know a watch was going to immediately lose 50% of its value the moment they walked out of the door and would have made a different choice. Scotty Pinball, welcome to the live stream, says, I hate Invicta and Hublot and Tag and that Navitimer, but not watches with Dennis. Well, I'm glad 1 out of 5 ain't bad. Is that what Meatloaf once said? I think he wanted to say that. I think that's what he wanted to say. That poor Navitimer. I'm going to put that Navitimer back up. All right. I have less than 50 minutes. I have to go get food because Chiefs game's on in 50 minutes. So I got to go get food and I have to run to the bank anyway. So I am going to call it here. Thank you, everyone. I didn't expect a bunch of people on this today, but I hope you enjoyed this particular episode. If you're watching the recorded version, post what watch brands you're interested in looking at getting for yourselves in 2025. I would be interested in reading that. If you enjoyed it, click like. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for participating in chat. That's what makes it work. Otherwise, you're just hearing me ramble for way too long, and nobody wants to hear that. That is it for this episode. I will plan to be back next Saturday with another live stream. I'm not traveling for the holidays, so I will talk to you all on the next video. Take care, everybody. I'll see you then.